been sailing around, tracking down organic farmers, and yesterday or today I tracked down Dan McManus here at the farm at Malibu. That's right. Yeah. So Dan he's done some time. He spent some years in Adelaide. So you crow eaters down there, you might recognise him. So Dan, why don't you give us a quick rundown on why you're here and how that came to be?
Sure. So I've been farming now for about 8 years, and
Biodynamic farming.
Biodynamic farming. Yep. By that I mean I've actually run my own operation for 8 years. Before that, I hopped around on farms. I learned from farmers. Actually, another Australian farmer out in New York was one of my first employers when I was young, and I sort of, over the years I've built about 4 or 5 farms, and I've lost them. And I've lost them for a variety of reasons, but I've also built through that I've built a really strong and viable business that's really well known in upstate New York. And,
cool.
It's called Common Hands Farm. CommonHandsCSA.com is where you can learn more about myself and my farm and what we do.
You're on Instagram too?
And on Instagram, Common Hands Farm.
Started stalking you today.
Yep, at Common Hands Farm.
Yep,
all one word. And so what I really, I've learned a lot over the years. I've had the opportunity, a wonderful opportunity to build farms, and wonderful opportunity to fail at building farms, which has kind of put me in a position to help other people who are working on building farms to really sort of strategize the best way forward, because the time is right now to really be promoting this stuff. And right here in Malibu is so important to me because there is no biodynamic farming really, except for a couple of other farms in this area, but it's very few and far between to find biodynamic food in one of the biggest cities of the country, which is Los Angeles.
So the question is, Dan, why biodynamics? You could be an organic farmer and not be practicing biodynamics, but what was it about BD that enthused you and got you using it?
Well, there's 2 answers to that. The first one, and I won't go as deep into that, is the connection to ourselves through our food, through the spiritual relationship of the earth to itself and its surroundings. That, for me, is one answer, and that I could go on forever, but I won't stick too much on that. But in the same sense that we take natural medicine in addition to conventional medicine when we find an ailment, we don't always treat maybe the symptoms of that in natural medicine, but we actually look at the root causes, and we look at the longevity of our body and the preemptive health and what it takes, to have a long, healthy life. So that leads into the second answer, which is that, and this is something that some other biodynamic farmer friends of mine and I were recently in a conversation about, is that through biodynamic farming, after about 8 years of treating a soil using biodynamic compost that is made in the right way, which is incredibly crucial, and is brought together with all of the different methods that were initially inspired by Rudolf Steiner in the 1940s through 1930s. 20s, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
924, lectures of 924.
1924, right.
Yeah.
Okay, there we
go. He wrote a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He probably wrote stuff after that too.
But at that point, there was nobody wasn't farming organically, as we would call it today. And at the same time, farmers were seeing a decline in their soils. Every year they had to apply more manure. Every year they had to cover crop more. They had to combat the constantly declining fertility in the soil. Here in America, we saw the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. That was a perfect example of how it rippled down into our entire culture. So we know that that soil can have a rapidly declining effect through this wonderful organic farming, and often, as on my farm, I come to pieces of land that have been under decline for hundreds of years, that have nothing of the soil that the first settlers once found in upstate New York. And we were able to see, this decline that had so rapidly taken place over years of these farming practices, and then begin to reverse it through using these biodynamic techniques. And one thing that has really struck me about it, and I'm finally working towards what I hope is going to be the farm that I will be on for many years, because over 8 years of treating soil with using biodynamic compost, you can actually get it to a stable, enlivened, fertile state that needs hardly any amendments over time. So 8 years of rigorously practicing these techniques, you begin to, and it's slow. It's not like the quick solutions we find in organic farming using organically certified fertilizers, chicken manure, all of these other things. It's about taking a long cycle, just like the cow's digestive system, many stomachs, and we take that long cycle and we apply that into the soil. What is the long cycle that will actually just give a time release, basically, of fertility? And so that, for me, is why I choose biodynamics, because I think that a planet that is farmed predominantly in those methods, we're suddenly going to see a reversal of the assumptions that we have that this planet is running out of food and is becoming depleted.
So for someone who's thinking about getting into biodynamics or even organics, and they're hearing it's going to take, well, they may interpret that as being it may take 8 years to get a result, or is your experience that there's incremental improvements?
Absolutely.
Because I guess what we don't want people thinking is that, oh my
that,
God,
what am I doing?
I won't see a thing for 8 years. I'll be stirring cow poo and doing all these crazy things at midnight on a full moon, and not experiencing things. The results up front. But I totally understand it does take that time to really hit its peak. But there's we can confidently say that there's results.
So, on my farm, I like to say, I'm not yet certified. I like to say that I'm transitional biodynamic. I am guilty of using amendments when I. No problem. All right.
We are back on.
Okay.
What is it over here? T-Mobile or something. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my battery's dying.
All right, no problem. We'll get you. We'll get this all in there before the battery dies. So, where was I? So I'm what I call transition to biodynamics, because I still use the amendments, and I know that I need to get a yield out. I put the investment that it takes to have I've roughly grown about 12 acres of vegetables on a larger 100-acre piece of land that gives me room to move around and regenerate soils, to cover crop more than I would if I was 8 years in on biodynamics. Even then, I would still, because it's part of the cycle.
Yeah.
But in general, to do about a 12-acre garden, it's been it's a $200,000 process, no matter how you slice it. And once you think you really get that amount of produce to market, you're talking trucks, tractors, you're talking greenhouses and everything like that. So you need as a young startup farmer, you need a smart technique for a return on your investment. So for me, I started in the most important place for biodynamic farming, and that was making compost. I think that the biodynamic compost and compost in general is at the heart of biodynamics, and that's the difference between any other farming practice, even permaculture, which I started out as a permaculturalist, and that led me into biodynamics, was that the compost is the core of it, because it's like a sourdough culture, or like a fermentation culture. You have this heart of the farm, this culture, and you spread that into the soil, and you infuse it with things that you wouldn't ever imagine that you need in your soils, like a fermented oak bark with the bone marrow of a skull of an animal, and that creates a amazing intensification of your soil's relationship to calcium. Just like homeopathic medicine, it at first it really seems like, is this going to work? And I'm giving myself this tiny dose of something which is so minute that it doesn't make sense in terms of practical science. But we know time and time again that practical science is constantly disproving itself. It's constantly being developed. It's always a theory that another theory is able to improve upon. And so with biodynamic farming, we are able to constantly improve upon that, constantly look at the effects of these things, and constantly see the difference. And the difference is incredible. I mean, it's especially incredible in the, it's just become especially acclaimed in the wine industry because there are wines that nobody can compare with, and they're like, what are you doing right? And we are following the patterns of these plants, the growth cycles of these plants. Just like we know the ocean is intimately connected tidally with the moon, we also know that the entire soil and the entire human body, being made up hugely of water, is connected to the moon cycles, and beyond that, even to other planetary cycles that influence the way that the moon approaches the Earth. So we're able to take these forces and really kind of put them into a thing that works. And what's been a challenge? I don't think there have been a lot of challenges for me, because I'm not afraid to take a step back and use the organic amendments when I need to. If you have all the money and all the time in the world, I would say, hey, that would be the quickest, most pure way to do it, is that. But as a practical young farmer, farm organically and make compost. Make the most amazing biodynamic compost. Read Rudolf Steiner's lectures. They'll tell you about that. His 8 lectures that he gave in Kobrovitz in 1924 were, while they are of biodynamic reading, they are the hardest to interpret. So I also recommend other resources around that. It really, I just read them for the 5th time, and I got a totally different thing out of every single time. The biodynamic lectures.
Are there any other reference books? Any Pfeiffer stuff, or Peter Proctor?
Pfeiffer was really helpful. His book Soil Fertility, I found, gives a really good picture of what soil fertility is. And another person who really built on that is one of my favorite authors is Hugh Lovell, also Australian. And he,
sort of.
Yeah, right. Well, that's right. He's there now, but I always
depends on where he has to be
Georgia.
on the planet. Yeah.
And I found his book Quantum Agriculture to be an incredible picture that, for other people who understand quantum physics and the sort of quantum way of understanding the spiritual picture of the way that intentions and the way that substances and materials interact with one another. I found that his book was really a very modern, pragmatic approach to that. Also, his book, A Biodynamic Farm, is a really basic, for beginners, good breakdown even before reading the lectures by Steiner to gain the bigger picture. And then to go deeper into Steiner's lectures, I found Manfred Klett's book, The Biodynamic Preps and How to Use Them, is another really... it's a beautiful spiritual picture of the breathing process of all of these preps. The 500 prep is this breathing into the soil, this deepening, and then the 501 prep is this release. But even the stirring of each one of those is a breathing process, one way, then the other way. This release, the laminar action of the water meeting itself and releasing these compounds, just like in homeopathy.
Now, Dan, before my battery dies,
sure.
I'm going to stop this, because if I don't, it's probably going to lose it.
Great.
But we'll do some more when I turn this off.
Sure.
Stay tuned.
All right.